Homage to the Buddha, homage to the Dharma, homage to the Sangha. Today I'm going to talk about the Bloodstream sermon. There are two others, the Wake Up sermon and the Breakthrough sermon. But before I start, I had an afterthought since last week when I mentioned that Guo Gu of the Dharma drum lineage had said, if you have a problem and you can solve it, it is no longer a problem. If you can't solve it, it is still not a problem, because then it is no longer your problem. And I think at the time I expressed my puzzlement over the last sentence. But it has somewhat clarified for me with something Suzuki Roshi said. And this is, emotionally, we have many problems, but these problems are not actual problems. They are something created. They are problems pointed out by our self-centered ideas and views. I was thinking, when we see we are the ones creating a problem by our self-centered opinions, and if we are willing and able to let our opinions go, then it's true there is no longer a problem for us or between us and another who doesn't share the same opinion. So I'll move on now from the 2 entries and 4 practices I spoke of last week. And as I said, today I'll speak about the Bloodstream sermon. As ever, with a semi-legendary figure like Bodhidharma, there are questions about the veracity of what has been handed down. The 3 entries and 4 practices are agreed by most scholars to have been written by Bodhidharma, but opinion nowadays is more divided about the other 3. Some suggest they might have been the work of one of his disciples. However, there is no dispute that if they were not written by Bodhidharma, they would have been written by a disciple who traced their ancestry to Bodhidharma and were faithful to his teaching. So for me, I have no problem in accepting them as Bodhidharma's bare bones teaching. Now, the Bloodstream sermon is all about mind in capital letters. This is not about the physical brain and its cognitive functioning. And incorrectly, we so often identify our being with our thinking. Thus we construct a false notion of ourselves out of ideas and memories that actually have no actual substance. I don't suppose Bodhidharma spoke of the ego, but today's use of the word seems to describe what Bodhidharma spoke of as the false self. That our thinking mind, when unconstrained and left to its own devices, constructs as it continuously talks to itself about itself. Sometimes the thinking mind disturbs this false self, this ego, if what it says doesn't seem quite right. And sometimes it even lies to this false self, as if to reassure it that all is well and no changes in behavior are necessary. Thus, I feel it behoves us to remind ourselves of the powerful advice in Dogen's rules for meditation. Neither trying to think nor trying not to think. I find when I can be still and awake in the sitting, I realize that any thought, whether it seems trivial or of greater import, will pass if I don't engage with it. So how about you? We can talk about that later. Bodhidharma's advice is not to think about our thoughts. I know this is good advice, but I certainly don't always follow it. Bodhidharma says, rather come to realize that everything that appears in the three realms comes from the real mind. So I ask myself, why do I even try to assess or think about thoughts? I understand the difficulty of using the word mind in two ways, as we do. We talk about the cognitive mind, and Bodhidharma's pointing to something deeper. But let's, at least for this talk, assume that when I use the word mind, it's sort of in capital letters and in bold. And I do this as a way of honouring what Bodhidharma was describing in this sermon. He says, hence Buddhas of the past and future teach mind to mind without bothering about definitions. It's worth remembering, I think, that Buddhism doesn't limit itself to one Buddha. It recognizes countless Buddhas. The only necessary qualification for Buddhahood is complete awareness. After all, everyone has Buddha nature and the potential for becoming Buddha. There is a Buddha in every world, our human world and those worlds that are described, for instance, so poetically in the Lotus Sutra. Similarly, there can be awareness in every thought if you're awake enough and not distracted into a kind of swamp of unrelated words that can hardly even be considered to constitute a thought. A question came from Bodhidharma's audience. But if we don't define it, what do we mean by mind? Bodhidharma's reply was, that's your mind. If I had no mind, how could I answer? If you had no mind, how could you ask? That which asks is your mind. Do you think the listener understood? Or more pertinent probably is, have you understood? Bodhidharma makes it very clear. This mind is Buddha. Wherever you are, whatever you do, that's your real mind. That's Buddha nature. Beyond this mind, you're never going to find another Buddha. To search for enlightenment or nirvana beyond this mind is a hiding to nothing. It's impossible. This mind is your self-nature. Self-nature depends on nothing, neither causally, temporally, or spatially. Self-nature has no appearance. It has no body. It is not some sort of ego. It is not some sort of substrate or characteristic that exists in or apart from phenomena. Self-nature is empty of all characteristics, including emptiness, and yet it defines reality. The absence of cause and effect could be a way of defining mind, of defining self-nature. That's if it works for you. Bodhidharma says your mind is nirvana. Don't imagine you can find a Buddha or enlightenment or somewhere beyond this mind. Such a place does not exist. Trying to find a Buddha or trying to find enlightenment is like trying to grab space. Space has a name but no form. It is not something you can pick up or put down, and you certainly can't grab it. Beyond this mind, you'll never see a Buddha. Why look for a Buddha beyond this mind? There is no Buddha beyond this mind. So why try to envision one? Rather, delve deeply into what this mind is. And probably what is now becoming familiar to you in how Bodhidharma teaches, he continues in his provocative way. Buddhas don't save Buddhas. Buddhas don't keep or break anything. Buddhas don't do good or evil. If you don't see your true nature, your Buddha nature, then invoking Buddhas, reciting sutras, making offerings, and keeping precepts are all useless. If you do know, and thus believe, that your mind is Buddha, then from the solid base, such actions as invoking Buddhas results in good karma. Reciting sutras results in good memory. Keeping precepts results in a good rebirth. And making offerings results in future blessings. When you don't know or believe this mind is Buddha, then all these good results do not lead to Buddhahood. Unless you see your mind, all the above-mentioned behaviors are useless. For example, reciting sutras is just a load of prose. And then he encourages us again by saying, to see a Buddha, all you have to do is see your true nature. Your true nature is Buddha. It is the Buddha who is free, free of plans, free of cares. If you don't see your nature and run around all day looking somewhere else, i.e. not within, you'll never find a Buddha. The truth is, there is nothing to find. You already have it. You already are Buddha. But to reach such an understanding is something else. Our human nature is our Buddha nature. Beyond this, there is no Buddha. Bodhidharma's asked another question. But suppose I don't see my nature, can I still attain enlightenment by invoking Buddha, reciting sutras, making offerings and observing precepts, practicing devotions or doing good works? The question certainly suggests the listener was not convinced by what Bodhidharma had been saying. And that is, to see Buddha, all you have to do is see your true nature. I wonder if those of us who are teachers find this is somehow familiar territory. I find myself sometimes wondering if the person asking a question has really not heard what I said, or were they genuinely puzzled or even troubled by what I had said. I guess I don't respond as brusquely as Bodhidharma often did. Perhaps he was, rather irritated by the question about whether even if we don't see our true nature, we can still attain enlightenment by invoking Buddha, reciting sutras, making offerings, observing precepts, practicing devotions, or doing good works. What Bodhidharma says is, no, you can't. I find what is so amazing about Bodhidharma is that he doesn't give people what they ask for. Rather, out of a boundless compassion, he points them to find out for themselves. So he doesn't really answer the question. What he says is, Buddhas don't practice nonsense. A Buddha is free of karma, free of cause and effect. A Buddha doesn't observe precepts. A Buddha does not do good or evil. A Buddha isn't energetic or lazy. A Buddha is someone who does nothing, someone who can't even focus his thoughts on a Buddha. A Buddha isn't even a Buddha. Don't think about Buddhas. If you don't see what I'm talking about, you will never know your own mind. But he goes on to say, if what I have said allows you to think that committing all sorts of evil deeds, or to claim karma doesn't exist, then you're sorely mistaken. You can't wriggle out by maintaining that since everything is empty, committing evil isn't wrong. Don't be tempted to take such a line, for a consequence will be that you will fall into a hell of endless darkness with no hope of release. Those who are wise hold no such conception. This real body is your real body. This real body is your mind. And this mind, through endless kalpas without beginning, has never varied. It has never been alive or died, appeared or disappeared, increased or decreased. It is not pure or impure, good or evil, past or future. It is not true or false. The real body that is your mind is not female or male. It does not appear as a monk or a lay person, a senior or a novice, a sage or a fool, a Buddha or a human being. It strives for no realization and suffers no karma. It has no strength or form. It is like space. You can't possess it or lose it. Its movements cannot be blocked by mountains, rivers, or rock walls. No karma can restrain this real body. But this mind is hard to see. It is not the same as the thinking mind. We all want to see this mind. Why don't we see it? Bodhidharma continues. The Buddha said that like all people, we are deluded. This is why when we act, we fall into the river of endless rebirth. And when we try to get out, we only sink deeper. And all because we don't see our nature. When we are deluded, we don't know who we are. Only the wise know this mind called Dharma nature, this mind called liberation. Neither life nor death can restrain this mind. Nothing can. It is also called the unstoppable Tathagata, the incomprehensible, the sacred self, the immortal, the great sage. Its names vary, but not its essence. Buddhas vary too, but none leaves their own mind. If you seek direct understanding, don't hold on to any appearance whatsoever, and you will succeed. All appearances are illusions. Don't cling to appearances, and you will break through all barriers. A Buddha is someone who finds freedom in good fortune and in bad. Such is his power that karma can't hold a Buddha. Heaven and hell are nothing to a Buddha. A Buddha's awareness penetrates everything. inside and out. But beware, if you're not sure, don't act. Bodhidharma goes on to describe the light of our true nature. As if in a dream, you see a light brighter than the sun, your remaining attachments will come to an end, and the nature of reality will be revealed. Such an occurrence serves as a basis for enlightenment. But this is something only you can know. You can't explain it to others, although Bodhidharma is obviously having a try. Don't tell others about it, and don't focus on it. It is the light of your own true nature. It is your mind about to reveal itself. So he seems to be saying, to become Buddha, you have to put an end to karma. Nurture your awareness and accept what life brings. If you're, for instance, always getting angry, you will turn your nature against the way. There is no advantage in deceiving ourselves. We need to know ourselves more and more deeply. Buddhas move freely through birth and death, appearing and disappearing at will. Awareness isn't hidden. And ever we need to work at this unceasingly. And then we will realize it can only be found in the present moment. It's only ever right now. The next moment is the next moment. And if you lose awareness in that moment, your real nature will again be hidden. It is only now. If you really want to find the way, don't hold on to past achievements. Don't hold on to anything whatsoever. Unless you see your nature, you should not go around criticizing the goodness of others. People who see their mind as Buddha don't need to shave their heads. Lay people are Buddha too. This called forth a question from the audience. But since lay people don't give up sex, how can they become Buddha? Bodhidharma's answer: once you see your nature, sex is basically immaterial. It ends with your delight in it. Even if some habits remain, they can't harm you, because your nature is essentially pure. It can't be corrupted. Your real body has no sensation, no hunger or thirst, no warmth or cold, no sickness, no love or attachment, no pleasure or pain, no good or bad, no shortness or length, no weakness or strength. Actually, there is nothing here. It is only because you cling to this material body that things like hunger and thirst, warmth and cold, and sickness appear. Don't hold on to appearance, any appearance whatsoever, and you will succeed. Don't cling onto appearances, and you will break through barriers. Once you stop clinging and let things be, you will be free even of birth and death. You will transform everything. You will be at peace wherever you are. If you doubt this, you will never see through anything. Maybe you're better off doing nothing. In India, the 27 ancestors only transmitted the imprint of the mind. Bodhidharma says, the only reason I have come to China is to transmit this instantaneous teaching of the Mahayana. This mind is Buddha. I don't talk about precepts, devotions, or practices. They are only provisional teachings. Once you recognize your moving, miraculously aware nature, yours is the mind of all Buddhas. Buddhas of the past and future only talk about transmitting the mind. They teach nothing else. If someone understands this teaching, they are a Buddha. If you don't see your own miraculously aware nature, you'll never find a Buddha, even if you break your bones into atoms. Bodhidharma speaks of a special transmission outside the scriptures, no dependence on words and letters, direct pointing to the mind, seeing into one's nature and attaining Buddhahood. So go beyond language, go beyond thought. Not thinking about anything is Zen.